Week on To the Contrary.
Women's special place in the immigration debate. Then, mothers as primary breadwinners. Behind the headlines, surrogacy and the single dad.
Headline, single dads. There are 70 million fathers in the U.S., of whom 1.8 million are single. This Father's Day, we look at how it's becoming much easier for men to have children without partners.
Chris Johnson always wanted to be a dad.
I think this is a universal desire, and that there are many men who maybe aren't married. Whether they're gay or straight, I don't think matters. I feel that that's something that most men would want. The world is changing in a positive way for this, for men to be parents.
The numbers bear this out. The 2010 U.S. Census found 15% of single parents are men. 30% of them were never married. Their visibility in pop culture is rising, too, with stars such as Ricky Martin and Clay Aiken becoming single dads. It's a new take on non-traditional families.
It wasn't as easy to do this 10 years ago. The world is changing. The technology was there, but the cultural awareness maybe wasn't there 10 years ago. And 10 years ago, I was thinking about adopting.
But adoption isn't always easy. As time went on, Johnson considered other options.
I'm gay, so getting married would not really be an option. And I discovered that you can father a child through something called gestational surrogacy, which not everybody knows about. I didn't when I started. It wasn't as if I went out thinking that I would father a child with gestational surrogacy, but the fact that you can find a wonderful anonymous egg donor, and the woman who carried my daughter Sophia, I call her my earth angel, someone willing to do that for you, and you can be the biological father of your child, is fascinating.
Johnson was fortunate he could provide for a child financially and emotionally.
I changed my entire life to be a father the way that I felt was best. So the business that I had founded and built, I sold. Then I changed the way I work to work primarily from home.
After doing some research on where he could most easily find a surrogate mother, Johnson chose Guatemala. Johnson became very involved in the pregnancy, flying back and forth to check on her.
I was much more involved than I believe most people expect or do themselves. I went to every major exam. I was there as much as I possibly could. I did my best to make sure that her surrogate mother was extremely comfortable and well cared for, so that she could be very healthy during the process.
On the day his daughter was born, Johnson was right there by the surrogate's side.
It was spectacular. It was an experience that is undescribable, because I personally have never been very comfortable with things like operations and, surgical procedures, because she was a C-section, and I didn't bat an eye. It was wonderful. It was like my heart opened immediately. And there's a photograph taken maybe 10 minutes after her first bath when they dressed her. She's looking at me right in my eyes. And friends have looked at that in my family, and they say it's amazing. She looks at you as if she knows you already. It was magical.
Now about 5 months old, Sophia has a large, doting family and friends and a stay-at-home dad.
I did not anticipate being her primary caregiver in the beginning. I thought that I would have support and help and a nanny. That was my plan. But what happened was, when I got her first smile, when I experienced her growth, so to speak, the idea of a nanny quickly moved to the side. I know I'll need help someday, but right now I want to enjoy every minute.
Johnson says many people he and Sophia meet want more information about surrogacy and his life as a single father. He's thinking about having another child. Coming from a close family, he believes Sophia shouldn't be an only child. And while Sophia will not have a mother, Johnson says through family and friends, she will have plenty of female role models.
This was my main personal consideration. When she's old enough to talk with her friends at school and understand the nature of her family structure, her friend is going to say, oh, that's really neat. You only have one dad. Well, I only have one mom. Or another friend will say, oh, I have two dads. Or another friend will say, well, I have two moms. Or another friend would say, I have a mother and a father. I live with them. And another would say, I have a mother and a father, but the father lives in California, and I live with my mother here. That is the nature of the world.
So is it surprising to see a father who not only wants a child, we see that all over the place, but who wants to full-time parent that child?
Not at all. It's the same desire, the same desire that drives women to find ways to become mothers, even if they haven't found a partner yet. It's the same for men, I think.
Is it really the same for all men? Is it the same?
Not all men.
Is it the same for the same percentage of men as it is for women?
I don't know. I don't know, but I can speak personally that the desire to be a parent is something that comes from inside of you, just like it does with men or women. It's not a male-female thing. It's not a gay thing or a straight thing. It's a human thing.
Do you see that in your husband, with you being pregnant at this point?
Yeah, I mean, I'm like really emotional now after seeing that. He's really excited about it, but when we first got married, he said, I could take or leave being a dad. And now he's so invested in it, and it's amazing to see these feelings develop. So I think it's terrific that these options are now open to fathers, that they weren't before. I mean, we have an adoption problem in this country. We have foster care problems in this country. And so the fact that this is something that is not stigmatized as much as it was before is terrific.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's a beautiful thing, particularly when we have all these options available. I'm going to kind of go out on a limb here, though, and kind of raise some concerns. I mean, concerns first are, one, it's about $100,000 plus, I believe,
mm-hmm.
To engage in that sort of surrogacy setup. And
it's not for poor people.
It's not for poor people.
Right.
So then you're going to get into these questions as it becomes more popular and the option becomes more attainable. Who can afford it? And so I like to see the breakdowns by race and by class in terms of that. The other thing, too, is in terms of,
but let me ask, you want to see the breakdowns. Okay, let's assume make the fair assumption that people of color and low-income white people are not going to be able to engage in this. What do you think we should do about that?
Yeah, so that's a big question right there. I don't know. I know that it's going to become an issue. It's going to start, especially as we get into sort of this new generation of children who are essentially the product of surrogacy, and so surrogacy becomes a more popular option. And then just like we have conversations and we have issues with regarding wealth and access and assets, we're going to be having the same discussion about 20 years from now. We're going to be having it surrounding the issue of surrogacy and people having the ability and the wealth to go to places like Guatemala and pick out a surrogate mother to have a child for them. So there's that one question. Another question, too, is the mother's not there, so it's I guess surrogacy might be a little bit different from an adoption or foster care setup, right? I mean, what about? Is there any concerns about any trauma to the girl when she gets older?
I'm going to jump in here because one of the things I've been doing for years is facilitating maybe baby classes for gay men through Rainbow Families DC that goes through the surrogacy process, the adoption process, and I can tell you the reasons why the ways that people choose to create their family are as personal as the reasons that they want to become families. For people who feel the need to or desire to have a biological connection, this is an option, and it's an expensive option, and it's not an option that's going to be available to everyone. Some people will do surrogacy here in the U.S. Some people will be able to do it in other countries, but there are also people like myself and my partner who didn't feel like we needed a biological connection.
So you adopted.
Oh, yeah.
You adopted your
We adopted domestically.
All right.
I just think it's great, and I think that there are going to be money costs involved, and it might shock some people, but no, I really don't think government should pay for it. And, you know, if you can pay for it and do that, that's great. You're going to have a loving family because you really want that family. If not, you can adopt.
All right. And I just like to say technology seems at this point in our lives to have no limits. Now, let's hope that it can solve climate change. That's it for this edition of To the Contrary. Please follow me on Twitter at Bonnier Bay and at To the Contrary, and visit our website, pbs.org/To the Contrary, where the discussion continues. And whether you agree or think to the contrary, please join us next time. That was great.
Eric had a stroke about that as well. It's not scientific.